right. Welcome, everyone. I am Dr. Tiffany Mims. I am the founder of the Rosetta Center for Counseling and Wellness, and I am one of the organizers of the Black Women's Self-Care Bundle that Samantha Gregory and I have collaborated on in recognition of International Self-Care Day, which is on July 24th. We are here today with Joy Allison, our distinguished ambassador and speaker today. Welcome, Joy.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So very excited to interview you today, to talk with you. We have known each other for about a year and a half now, going on two, something like that. Yes. And I've just really been amazed and inspired by the work that you do. So without further ado, tell us a little bit about who you are, what is it that you do, and who you serve.
Yes, again, thank you, Tiffany, and thank you to Samantha for putting this together. I am Joy Allison. I'm a workplace well-being facilitator, speaker, consultant, and burnout recovery and wellness coach. And I do have a focus with working with Black women. I also work with organizations, professionals, and leaders navigating the pressures, performance demands, and workplace expectations that quietly contribute to burnout, with a particular focus, like I mentioned, with Black women. And my work is about helping people recognize burnout before it becomes a crisis, while supporting individuals and organizations in making meaningful changes that better support well-being. I help people notice early signs of stress, understand what's contributing to them, and understand before burnout becomes the only thing that's getting their attention. And for those already experiencing burnout, I help them understand what recovery can look like and identify practical steps toward rebuilding their well-being. I, again, then will partner with the organizations to examine workplace culture, communication, leadership, and everyday workday practices that influence employee well-being. Together, we explore practical ways to navigate everyday stresses before they become chronic sources of strain. And then lastly, and ultimately, my goal is to help people and organizations create environments where well-being isn't something we only think about after we've reached our breaking point.
You said so many important things in there. So would you mind if we just took a few minutes and really tease some of that apart? You talked about burnout, once people are experiencing burnout, being aware of that, but you also talked about prevention. So tell us a little bit more about both sides of that experience.
Yeah, so it's for both. I do it one-on-one with individuals, and I also do it with organizations. So when it comes more with the individual for the burnout recovery, this is an opportunity to assess what is currently happening in their life. So there's an assessment that takes place, and then there's also the unlearning of certain conditions that she may have been conditioned to have. So again, I mentioned with the burnout recovery and wellness coaching, my focus is with Black women, and there's some nuances that are there in terms of the superwoman syndrome or the strong Black woman. So that comes up a lot in our conversations. And one of the things that I share is that the goal is not to bounce back. The goal is not to go back to who you were. This is an opportunity to reclaim a new life. This is an opportunity to really recognize the conditions that you were taught in terms of survival, that you were rewarded for. And now, what does success, what does well-being really look like for you moving forward? And then in terms of workplace well-being for organizations, really understanding what contributes to your employees' well-being. What does that look like with communication, with expectations, with leadership, and then recognizing with your staff, your employees, not everybody's going to experience stress and burnout the same way. There's some systematic pieces that come into place. There's certain expectations that happens. So for both, for the individual and for organizations, really having an honest conversation to recognize that when it comes to the burnout or the chronic stress, this is not an individual thing. There's environments. The environmental factor also plays a big role in that. And now what are some things that we can really explore to make some better changes so that you have healthy employees, right? The leadership is healthy also, because to have a healthy environment, we need to have healthy people. We need to have healthy leaders that are also role modeling these behaviors and practices and changing policies. It definitely is making sure that we have some conditions in place for people to thrive, not just survive.
I really appreciate, though, recognizing that the efforts towards wellness and self-care isn't just an individual effort, right? That the environments, the systems, the institutions, the workplaces play a huge role in preventing burnout. So, Joy, tell me, so how long have you been doing this work, and what led you to become an expert on burnout?
I could write a book on this. And in fact, I think I will, Tiffany. Think about like self-care and how I got here. What I want to say, like for me, the self-care is paying attention to yourself before stress, exhaustion, or burnout becomes the only thing that's not getting your attention. And I think about years ago, I've been in higher education for about 20 years. And one of the things that stands out to me is that I was rewarded for burning the midnight oil. There was a reward of being visible, of always being on. There was this expectation about going above and beyond. And it wasn't even an exception, it was the norm. So I found myself going above the above and going beyond the beyond. And it just so happened as I was doing this, I had these one-off things that was happening to me physically. So one moment I had acid reflux, that would go away. Then the next moment I'm bloated, that would go away. Then another moment I would wake up tired after sleeping like 6 or 7 hours. So these were all one-offs. And I had a reason for each one. Oh, the bloated is I ate too much. The acid reflux, maybe it's the tomatoes that I'm eating too much, and that's why I have the acid reflux. And these one-offs all happened at the same time. And it just so happened when they all happened at the same time, I had a doctor's appointment. And I said, you know what? I got to go to the doctor. I don't know about you, but when I get really busy, sometimes my doctor's appointments, GYN appointments, dentist
Right.
appointments, I want to reschedule for later. But
That's
it was
right.
just too much that was happening physically for me to ignore. So I go to my doctor and I'm telling him what I didn't share yet was I was working 12 to 15 hours a day. I was bringing work back home. I was overextended and something was just feeling off. So I had did labs with my allopathic doctor, the naturopath doctor. He looked at my eyes, like I'm like the pink of it for iridology. We did a spit test for the cortisol levels, and I think something for urine, these other exams.
Yeah.
After looking at my lab work and looking at what my body was saying to him, because I just didn't know what was happening, I couldn't connect the dots. He
Mhm.
looked at me and he said, "What is the quality of your life?"
Oh my
What?
goodness.
You had a question asked to you that you had to repeat it. So I repeated to myself and I repeated into a whisper so I could really hear it and answer
Right.
it. So I said, what is the quality of my life? And
Right.
I realized at that moment, the way I was seeing achievement and success, it did not incorporate my well being. And my doctor
Wow.
also said to me, if you continue to go this way, you're going to find yourself with long term and short term health issues. I'll share this about my labs. I was pre diabetic at the time. I had more weight on my body than I ever did in my life at the time. And I had high cholesterol. So metabolically, there was a lot of stuff that was just off. But from
Right.
the outside, Tiffany, I was still showing up. I was still getting work done. I was still feeling sometimes vibrant but exhausted. And I was still on. So I was functioning, but I wasn't really flourishing. I was still producing, right? And that also taught me that functioning and feeling well is not the same thing. And so I realized that for myself. And I looked around and there was other women, other men experiencing this. And I said, you know what? I got some medicine for these folks if they want to take it. And which is, I wanted to share with them that we can be excellent without self-sacrificing, right? We can do this great work and make sure that our well-being is part of that. And so that was the catalyst of how I got into the coaching and got into the workplace well-being because I didn't want to just talk the talk. I wanted to walk the walk. And it was a protocol that went along with that. And that could be another series. We talk about that piece. But I had to make some changes, right? And even if that meant that people now were seeing me in a different way than what they were used to. And so I use some of those experiences as a way from my coaching for my workplace well-being and sharing with leaders, you have to be healthy as you are leading your teams. You have to role model, okay, we'll pick this up tomorrow. Rest is part of our strategy, and that understanding that wellness and well-being is part of the operation strategy. So that's a little bit of how I got into it from a personal
Wow.
experience. And unfortunately, burnout is still taking place, chronic stress is still happening with folks, but I recognize signs and symptoms for myself before anything bigger comes out of it.
Wow, Joy, thank you for sharing your story and your experience. I can only imagine how many folks listening can relate to what you were saying, going above and beyond, right? Just working nonstop, working at your highest level capacity all the time, and then being rewarded for that, right? I think a lot of times we find ourselves in that trap where you're doing something, you're doing well, and people see that you're doing well, then you think you have to maintain that, but it's actually not sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you also mentioned when you first started describing your symptoms, right? You're saying they're one offs, right? I think we
Mm-hmm.
do that. I think as busy professional women, we kind of
Mm-hmm.
notice a symptom, but okay, I'll get to it another time. Or you notice another one, okay, that'll go away. And instead of taking a step back and looking at all of these things as a whole, that's your body telling you something. Wow.
And I didn't know. So, right, my body was like screaming, Mayday, we need
Yes.
your attention. But like I mentioned, I was able to excuse it off. Oh, that acid reflux is from the
Right.
tomatoes. That bloating, I ate too fast. Oh, why did I wake up and didn't feel well rested? Because I didn't have enough hours to sleep. Now, it happens all at one time. And I was rewarded, just like some of my colleagues, for pushing through. You
Right.
push through, right? You endure. You came to work with that toothache. You came to work even if you had a headache. I now know that is not okay. I
Yes.
didn't know what I know now. I didn't understand or know then, and I didn't even know at the time that I was experiencing burnout. I didn't know
Wow.
the word. I didn't have the language for it. I remember my naturopath calling it adrenal fatigue, and the
Mhm.
closest that I understood about burnout was burning the candles on both ends of the
Right.
stick. So it's
Right.
like when you know better, you do better. Not, and I don't say that in a condescending, judgmental way, but just
Right.
listen to it. I know better, so
Yeah.
I can do better.
Okay, so many relatable aspects to this, to your story.
Mm.
Now, so when you hear the word self-care, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. touched on it briefly when I was talking about like what led me and how I got into this work. The
Mhm.
self-care is something to me that we do on a daily basis. I've heard of self-care Sundays, or I'm scheduling my self-care the middle of the week. And I think that's all important. But when I think of self-care, I think about it as being preventive. I think about it being like maintenance. That is something that you can do small, it could be big, whatever is needed, but it's part of your regimen, it's part of your routine, it's part of how you take care of self. So if that means when you get up in the morning, you need to take 5 minutes to pray, to meditate, to stretch, that's part of your self-care. If that means you have to slow down when you eat, and I'm talking to myself because if the food is good, I'm going in, right? My self-care is to make sure I'm enjoying every morsel of that rice. So whatever I'm eating, so I don't have to think, wait, did I eat? Or what happened to my food?
Savor the
So
experience.
exactly. And the self-care also is not waiting until a crisis happens, right? The self-care is not a reward after I do everything on my list of 101 things. Now I can take care of myself. I
Right.
add taking care of myself. I add that pause my day throughout my weeks. So here I would also say it's interesting that there's times I still do push through, but I also give myself much more time to recover. And then
Yeah.
during those times when I'm pushing through, my self-care has to come through. So my meals will be made, or I'm going to order it, or I have a cup of water with me that I will drink,
Yeah.
hold on,
Yep.
during that time, because it's so easy to, for me sometimes, to be on the go. So the
Right.
self-care is just being aware that what do I need to do for today? What needs to be done for tomorrow? It's not something I'm holding off. And
Right.
because I'm going to do it later comes, and it's like, I'll do this later. That later comes, I'll do this later. And then you push this so
Yes.
far out, it doesn't happen. So I see self-care as something that it's already part of our routine on a day-to-day
Yes.
basis.
Yeah. I think that is such an important message, a daily practice. Because if we wait for the to-do list to be complete, then it will never happen.
No,
Right. So how about
no.
let's put self-care number one on the list, make sure it happens, and then the other things. Maybe if we want to. But let's just make sure we get the self-care done. Yeah.
Negotiable. When I wake up in the morning, that's my time. That's my time for some quiet. That's my time to meditate, to pray, and to stretch. I have to check in with me before I check in with the world.
Yeah.
Finds it depends on what it looks like on a day to day. So I would even add that for me, for my self care, it doesn't look the same every day. But my mornings, those are non-negotiable of me praying and meditating and checking in with myself before the world tells me what it needs, before other people tell me what they need. I already checked in with me, so I'm grounded for that day.
Wow. Okay. So again, with self-care, why do you think this is such an important topic for Black women in particular? And what are some
Mm.
of the challenges that Black women might have around that daily practice of self-care?
So I think you heard my sound effect.
Yes.
It's so layered, really so layered, because I talked earlier about conditioning, and I'm looking right at this book that I always go back to, The Black
Mm,
Woman's Guide to
to
Coping with
cope.
Stress.
Okay. Yeah.
So here's a resource, Dr. Cheryl Woods Giscombe. And I mentioned she's the one who came with the framework of the strong Black woman and superwoman
Yes.
syndrome. And in this book, many of us can understand the conditioning in terms of showing up for everyone else, that self-sacrifice should be rewarded, to take care of yourself is selfish, if you rest that you're lazy, or you're slowing
Mm,
down other things that needs to happen.
right.
And so when you have this conditioning, you see these behaviors, and you're also rewarded for enduring, right? You're rewarded for taking care of other folks. You're rewarded for being, quote, selfless. Then it can be really difficult when you need to focus on self. Is, wait a minute, I'm focusing on me and this has to take place. I want these dreams to happen, but this needs to happen. I'm the dependable person. And so there's a conflict then if you've been rewarded and you've been conditioned and you understand or believe that these, I come last, now you have to put yourself first. How do you reconcile that? So I
Right.
think that can get in the way if you've been operating for so long and now you need to make a change, or something has
Yes.
forced it. This is real stuff.
It is. It is. Yeah.
So how
Yeah.
do you, it can be reconciled. So I'm asking rhetorically, how do you reconcile? But we know it can. That's where some of the unlearning and support and really challenging how you've been operating for so long, because it also can impact identity. You've been operating so long that it's like, okay, how do I separate what I do from who I am?
Wow.
And that work can take place. So I think that's what comes in the way when you're rewarded for being strong.
Yes.
And then that's also depleting you.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say there's a lot, all of those factors that come up. And now you have to face that. You have to push back and say, wait a minute, in order for me to do all of these things, I have to take care of me. In order for me to take care of folks, for me to remain dependable, for me to meet my own goals, my
Yeah.
wellness has to be a priority for all of this other stuff to happen.
Yes. My wellness has to be a priority before all the other things. That's what
That's
I'm
right.
hearing.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. But you're
Mhm.
right. Just hearing that alone can be challenging, right? A major identity shift for a lot
Oh
of
yeah,
Black women. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Joy, you said that we can overcome this, right? We can change and challenge the way in which we've been trained or socialized or a different identity around our own self care and wellness. So, tell us a little bit about the resource that you're sharing with the community today to help us with this.
Yes, this resource, I should say, this resource that I put together, and it's called that you've been pushing through too much. And it's meant to be a reflection guide. This is not about fixing anybody because no one needs to be fixed, no one is broken. This is an opportunity to pause, to reflect. And I know when we're constantly on the go, sometimes these are things we may not do. So this gives you an opportunity with your favorite beverage of choice or meal to do this. I created it because burnout doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it's quiet. Burnout has a way of being really consistent of how it shows. And many women like myself, at the time I was experiencing burnout, are still functioning and still showing up and still producing and still being awarded for doing some really great work. And so this is an opportunity to recognize when you're functioning or flourishing, when you're surviving or you're thriving. And it's designed also to help Black women to pause, to reflect, and to notice some of the patterns that get overlooked. It includes reflection questions and practical ways to support themselves without making self-care feel overwhelming or like another thing to do on a to-do list.
Yes, that reflection and awareness, and then the practice.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Very important.
All right. Okay. So, are there other services or products or other resources that you provide?
Yeah, I offer monthly master classes as it relates to just burnout and well-being overall. And I also will sometimes do that just based on the ebb and flow of the year. So in the beginning of the year, we're talking about setting some goals and intentions. And then 3 months later, let's check in to see if we're still with those same goals, if something had to change, which is fine. I'm getting ready to offer another master class for the summer. I also can be found on social media where I will share some insights and some reflections as it relates to just overall well-being, workplace well-being, burnout prevention, and if somebody's experiencing burnout recovery also. So when I'm focusing on burnout, it's someone who's looking to prevent it or someone who is experiencing it, and what does that look like to navigate? So you'll see a lot of resources and reflections and insights on that. And if there's some other things that I want to share, I'll share those aspects as well.
Okay. So, how can people find you or keep up with the events and the workshops and master classes that you have?
I'm on social media. You can find me on LinkedIn with my name, Joy Allison, Joy, last name Allison. I can also be found on Instagram, and my Instagram is Joy I Am, Joy I Am. So Joy I Am repeats twice. Joy I Am, Joy I Am. And I'm on Facebook, and you can find me also Joy Allison as well, Joyallison.
Okay, very good. And we'll also make sure to share all that information with folks so they can keep up with all this important work that you're
Wonderful.
doing. It's so relevant, right? From your
Mhm.
story alone to the encouragement and the hope with the self care as a practice. So we definitely want folks to be able to stay in touch with you. And then you will also be joining us for the roundtable on International Self Care Day on July 24th at noon. So looking forward to that conversation as well.
Here.
Okay. So before we wrap up, do you have any final words? Is there just maybe one thing that you would want Black women to remember along this journey to self care?
Repeat something I said earlier, and I would want whoever's listening to repeat this with me. My wellness is a priority. My
Yes.
wellness is a priority. I think that's really important that we don't think that taking care of ourselves means that nothing else is getting done. It doesn't mean that we're being selfish. It means that you recognize taking care of yourself is a priority before you can take care of other people, and to give yourself grace. You did the things that you did based on what you knew at that time. And now you're giving yourself this opportunity to learn and to unlearn some new practices and beliefs and mindsets that you can role model to other folks, or you can just prioritize you. So your well-being is a priority. Your self-care is not something that you need to wait until the 101 things and 5011 things you got going on needs to take place. You
Yes.
come first. You come first.
All right. I think, yeah, that is such a helpful message to end with, right? My wellness is a priority, period. Yeah.
That's right.
All right. Again, Joy, thank you so much. I have really appreciated learning and listening to you over the years about burnout and recovery from burnout. And I just know that folks picked up some gems today. You just ended with a beautiful one. Our wellness is our priority. So thank you again for being here and for offering these services to our community.
Thank you, Tiffany.
All right. I will see you on July 24th on International Self Care Day. Bye.